Hello everyone, Kyle here. I'm going to review the new Star Wars series, The Acolyte, which just finished its 8th episode about 2 nights ago on Disney Plus. I was very excited to watch this show. I thought that it had a lot of promise, and I also have read most of the High Republic novels, so it was really great to see a Star Wars show take place in that era. Now, basically, if you are unfamiliar with The Acolyte, the show itself is about a former Jedi Padawan who reunites with her Jedi Master, and they kind of have to find out this mystery of a bunch of Jedi that are being killed by this mysterious assassin who is killing them without a lightsaber, at least. Now, what's interesting about this show is that Leslie Headland is the showrunner, and she did the highly acclaimed series Russian Doll. Essentially, she pitched this show almost as Kill Bill meets Frozen, and basically the big surprise of this show that it's not really a surprise anymore because most people have watched it, but it's the fact that the show is based around these two twins, Osha and May. And they were both played by Amandla Stenberg, who does a great job playing both of these characters. And it's really interesting to see a Star Wars series that depicts like two twins separated when one became a Jedi and how that kind of affects the other. Now, in the High Republic books, there's actually a similar type of storyline there. So I think they may have taken some inspiration, if anything, but I think it's really cool that you have some ripples and parallels in the other books themselves. The show itself is a mystery, and 8 episodes, you get them trying to find out what's going to happen to these Jedi, how some of these Jedi were murdered, and I think the show really excels in showing the Jedi as human. They're more than just, the strong, heroic figures we see in the prequel trilogy or in any of the Star Wars movies. They have a lot more vulnerabilities to them. They have a lot of emotion that they are trying, I think, bury inside of them or not deal with. And also what I loved about it was that you kind of get to see the perspective of the bad guys, the Sith, the ones that are killing the Jedi. Are they right? Are they wrong? Are the Jedi right? Are the Jedi wrong? There isn't really a black and white to this story. Yes, characters die, but some of these characters do some very questionable things. One of my favorite characters in the show is Master Soul, and he's a very flawed character. He's played by the great Lee Jung-jae from Squid Game, and he's like the master, and he kind of is like a Qui-Gon Jinn at times, but he's very different from Qui-Gon. Some of his actions throughout the course of the series, you begin to question, and sometimes you kind of disagree and almost resent him as a character, because there are a lot of actions that these characters take in the show that are very questionable and very unsettling. And I think that was a really bold move for this show because they don't portray the Jedi as perfect. They have flaws, just like all humans do. Now, I also applaud this show for being as willing to take risks, because characters die in this show and they're not the same types of characters that you think would die. Usually when it comes to like even like Disney Plus shows, they'll introduce a number of characters and then some will die that are predictable, and then even the ones that die, they might come back to life. I think back to Book of Boba Fett, where they had Cad Bane kill Cobb Vanth, and then no, he's back in like a, Boba Fett back to tank. Like it just doesn't feel like there are stakes when that happens. And I think it takes away the other characters that do try and kill those characters because it makes their actions feel like they have no impact. When it comes to the main villain of this show, quote unquote, the Stranger, I think this character is absolutely phenomenal as a villain. He looks cool. He has a great, you know, stance as a fighter, and also like he has this thing called cortosis that if you hit him with the lightsaber, like the metal will like basically short out a lightsaber blade, which is something we've never seen in live action before. It's so cool. So yeah, I really, really loved what they did with the villain of the show, the Stranger. I loved, like, as I said, Master Soul as a character. I thought that the twin dynamic, I actually liked the twin dynamic. I thought that Osha and May were really interesting characters to see how they kind of like reflect their own actions, because I kind of see like Osha as part of the light and May as a part of the dark, but then you get to see, because they're their own person in a way, they both kind of form their own light and darkness. So I think that was really cool. As like Leslie Headland has pointed out, there's a lot of like duality in this show that is, I think, so much a part of what Star Wars is, what George Lucas wanted to do with Star Wars. So yeah, like I think the show is a really interesting series on the exploration of the Jedi Order and how they kind of have dissolved and kind of have their own flaws in a sense. And the action choreography is fantastic. It's the best we've seen since, I mean, I would say even like the sequel trilogy had some really great fights, but even going back to the prequel trilogy, it's some of the best, lightsaber battles we've seen since. Those are like all my positives. I will say this show was too short. It's 8 episodes long, and the episode lengths themselves are sometimes about 27 minutes without credits. At most, it's like, I think 48, something like that, 48 minutes. And there is so much story in this show, I feel like it would have benefited, and so many characters in the show, I feel like they would have benefited with a longer runtime and more episodes, because even though there's another season on the way, even the story they were trying to tell in this season, it felt like there was still way too much story for them to tell with the amount of episodes they gave us. I also felt like I didn't fully connect to many of the characters because we spent so little time with them. There are characters that die in this show that we only get to see probably at most about 10 minutes of. And it's a real shame because they have some really strong characters in this show that I would have liked to see more of, but they could have killed those characters off. Just give us more of those characters in a longer episode. So I think that is the biggest, I think, issue with the show. Sometimes character motivations are a bit blurry. I kind of blame some of the script for that. I also think that the look of the show looked very small. It never felt like the prequel movies where, like, if you went to Coruscant and you went to the Jedi Temple, it's this massive, ginormous temple. The rooms in this show were incredibly small. They felt very self-contained. It did not feel like the same Jedi Temple from the other movies and animated series. I think that this show will get a season 2, and I hope that they improve upon these issues, because I do think that there's a lot to really sink your teeth into with the Acolyte, and I can't wait to see where it goes. But I will say that I was disappointed in terms of some of the budget, the way they use some of the budget, and in terms of, I think, the episodes, because I do think that it could have been a much stronger series if it was longer. But that being said, let me know what you thought of The Acolyte, and have a nice day, guys, and may the Force be with you.